Welcome back once more. We are still on My Children, My Africa. I hope you have viewed the first lesson. We are now going to go directly to Act 1, Scene 2. This is after the debate at Zolile High School, where Isabel was invited together with her teammates to Zolile, which is a high school in a black township, to debate. And then she won against Tammy, as I've stated in the first upload of the play My Children, My Africa. Now, Act 1, Scene 2 is a reflection of Isabel's experience at Zolile High School. This is the Isabel's first monologue, and monologues are very important in a play. In another literature term for monologue is what you call soliloquy. Soliloquy, SOLILOQY, soliloquy. This is where the character opens up to the audience, and we get to understand the character's deepest seated emotion or attitude about a particular subject. Now, here in Act 1, Scene 2, Isabel is going to give a reflection. Remember, bear in mind that she went to a black township to debate for the first time, and which was somehow a foreign experience for her, and given the circumstances that it was during the apartheid system, where the laws did not permit for blacks and white to mix easily. Now, through Mr. M's invitation from her school and the manner in which even they were transported, they said that the teacher at Kamdebu agreed on the basis that they will be safely transported to the township and being brought back. That line alone in the book further shows that the initiation was, I wouldn't say 100% welcomed, in a sense that the conditions were laid that they must be safely transported to and from Zolile High School, which further also raises eyebrows on the aspects of inequalities and how white people perceived safety when entering or rather visiting predominantly black dominated areas like at Zolile High School. So in this scene, we are going to get to know a lot about her using a monologue, if not a soliloquy. The moment where she just, after the great debate, she is going to do what? To reflect on her experience at Zolile High School. Now let us go through the notes. I'm going to speak to the notes, not read them verbatim, and somehow give analysis and explain the important parts of the scene. Now, Isabella talks about a place called Bragwater. I did explain Bragwater in the opening scene or the first lesson. I'm sure by now you should be knowing the significance of the name Bragwater and how ironic it is, not ironic, pardon me, the figurative implication of the name Bragwater. That lies on the edge of Kamdebu, which most just call it the location. So white people call the Bragwater just the location. She complains about how ugly it is and says that some people feel that it should be moved from distance away from the town, meaning that the place was not, of course, in good condition. And as one coming from a white privileged background, she is somehow not understanding the conditions that which black people lived in, especially at the place called Bragwater. Now, in this monologue, Isabel describes Bragwater, which is a black township on the outskirts of town where Tammy lives. The town's white resides just call it the location, as I've already stated, and it consider it an undesirable eyesore. In the book, they even say that it's an undesirable place, which is also eyesore. It means that it pains one to look into it, which is a figurative expression. Well, the town is full of well-maintained old buildings like Isabel's family shop, which further shows that she comes from a privileged family. Even the shop that her father owns, remember that the father owns a chemist, if not a pharmacy. It's described in the play as one of the beautiful buildings, which further again provides evidence that she comes from a well-off family. Now, Isabel struggles to imagine what it would be like to live in such poverty. She describes the depressing classroom environment, and we have to find out why is it depressing in her own view. Isabel explains that it is not as if she has never had contact with black people before. Contact across the color line, it means that contact with black people prior her visit to Zolile High School, because she regularly gossips with her maid in the morning. I've explained that she calls her auntie, who is a domestic worker at her house or at her home, and she also chats with Samuel, a man who delivers medicines for her father. She reveals that she likes to have some conversation about life with Samuel. However, in Breakwater, she was an outsider, and though she soon became excited by the new environment, a new world in inverted commas, she decided that she wants more contact with these people to expand her understanding. Now, in her monologue, there are quite a number of interesting expressions that she made. For an example, she explained that the location is full of corrugated metal shacks. It means in Breakwater they are living in shacks. There are a lot of potholes and trash, which further shows the condition that which black people were subjected to. Isabel remembers visiting and imagining living there like her family's maid auntie, who shares a 2-room shack with 8 family members. Isabel says she's lucky to be white, which is an opinion that comes from a privileged voice and a privileged experience, because she's struggling to comprehend how can black people survive under such conditions, or should I say bad conditions. Now, with that said, furthermore, now in her, as I've stated, that there's quite a number of interesting description that she made, which reveals her attitude and her perception rather of black lives. And she further reminds the audience for the reasons, or rather the reasons for her visit at and that Isabel explains that she went to Breakwater after her school principal invited her to an inter-school debate. She also reminds the audience, as I've said, of the reasons for her visit. Her and her 2 teammates were excited for the debates, which they saw as a pioneering mission in inverted commas, and reminded themselves to use simple language because English isn't the black students' native language. Now, I want you to be cognizant of such statements made by Isabel at this point in time, to say that as members of the team, they agreed to use simple English. So you see how they perceived this is a disconcerting tone. It's an undermining tone already without meeting and having experience with the black debaters at Zolile High School. They are already having a preconceived idea that is which is demeaning or belittling to black people, black students, that they need to use little, if not less complicated language, because simply because English is not their home language. For not and they are in, I would say, they're in for a shock, given the likes of Tammy, who is very an eloquent and well expressing speaker of note, and they will get to be quite shocked to meet such in such a way that having that preconceived idea. Now, such expression gives you an attitude. Remember, we are not only learning the content of the plan or the plot, but we also learn the character and characterization. Characterization in a sense that what is that the character is saying and in what tone, which ultimately helps us to find the attitude of the speaker, but also of the character. But also, what I want you to note is that between Isabella and Tammy, you must be in a position in grade 12 to understand and note how these characters are going to develop and change. Mr. M character doesn't change drastically because he remains the same from the beginning until his untimely death, where he's vowed for education and that education first and liberation later, and he wants learners to be at school and not to be part of the boycotts and so forth. Those are his ideology until the end. But then you study characters such as Tammy and Isabel, simply because they are teenagers, right? And then check against the plot. When the plot unfolds, how are they going to change? This is the opening or the first monologue of Isabel. Now you look at her perception towards black people. You look at her perception in the manner in which she describes the condition that which black people live. She even goes further to make statements like she's happy that she's born with a white skin, because she wouldn't survive a living in the conditions that black people are living at. She even, together with members of a debate team, goes further to use a disconcerting tone to say, we can't go there and debate with big English. We need to use less complicated or simple English because they are blacks. That gives you that she has somehow a negative attitude or a belittling attitude towards blacks, and we have evidence to support that. And not only is it bear in mind that this is what only happening in Act 1, Scene 2. So we must check as to whether towards the end or in other scenes when the plot develops, is Isabel going to change her perception towards black people and the manner in which she speaks about black people. And in this monologue, also Lily Q, she was further astonished, right? To debate in such a bleak, depressing, grey classroom. And although she was uncomfortable there, she was confident in her debating skills and excited to show the black kids how to do it well. Okay, but when Isabel got up to speak and looked out the audience, she explains she realized that they weren't there to celebrate her generosity. They were there to judge her arguments on the basis of total equality. This was the first time Isabel ever interacted with black people as equals. It's important to note that, right? This was the birth of interrelation between the two races. Remember, here she is reflecting on what happened in Act 1, Scene 1. Okay, she is just reflecting. Like most white South Africans, she knows most black people like Auntie, her maid, and someone, as we already read in the notes here. She was in their world, okay, meaning that now she got to know beyond just having conversations with the maid, with Auntie and Samo, but now she went literally into their world, meaning that she went into Zolile High School, that is in Breakwater, right? As an outsider for the first time. Now she felt horribly exposed. Although she started off shakingly, her teammates assured her that she finished strong. Indeed, during her opening address, she realized that speaking to this new audience let her see herself in a new light, in a new perspective, because indeed this was a new experience for her. Now, Isabel concludes that this was a transformative experience for her. It showed her a new world, okay? Now, new world in inverted commas, because it's not necessarily new, because the place is relatively closer to her location. It's new in the sense that she got now to know the insides of Breakwater and the life of black people, and the manner in which black people, if not the conditions that white black people were subjected or lived in. And then embracing back the new, which is the location just at her backyard. But now she sees that it's a whole world of its own. It's an amazing realization, but it's also unsettling, because it means there's much more to the universe than the place where she grows up. Isabel is eager to get to know more of it. Now, towards the end of this monologue or soliloquy, we get to see a slight change of attitude and development in terms of character. Even the manner in which the author uses words, change of words and diction, from the descriptions of grey classroom, to black people who with limited knowledge of the language, which is English. Now she is somehow inquisitive to find more and to learn more about this new world, that which is in Breakwater. And of course she's going to get to know this new world again through the eyes and perception of Tammy as well as Mr. M. All right. Now with that said, Still exploring, and she reveals that her expectations were that students in the black school will be grateful for the white team visit, but she is surprised that the 40 black students in the classroom are not that grateful. And the themes explored uh, in this scene is that of social class distinction. When you speak about class, we speak about the level of living, the levels of living. Isabel describes that breakwater location and how ugly it is to visitors. Instead of wanting to improve the service and amenities in the township, the mayor and the white residents of Kamdebu just want to move it so that it can be seen. It's a disturbing scenery for them as a white privileged community. None of them is concerned with justice, fairness, or equality. Isabel initially agrees with them. She says, to be fair, to old Pinar, who is the mayor, he has got a point. Our town is very pretty, like it's as stated in page 55 of the book. However, as she spends time in Bergwater, she comes to recognize it as a place where real people who she cares about live, and not just an eyesore. Now, hence we see the transition. You see towards the end, she's starting to warm up to the idea of understanding better the lives of black people and the inequalities of the apartheid system that impacted negatively on the livelihood of the blacks. And then, of course, there's a theme of inequality that can be extracted also from this scene, where we see apartheid created a lot of inequalities between the different races in South Africa. Isabel's first monologue supports the theme of inequality because she describes the glaring difference between Kamdebu and Breakwater, right? And our town is very pretty. For example, in page 51, where she proudly describes the beauty of the town as compared to the location is quite an eyesore. Remember, when something sore, something that causes pain. So when you say eyesore, it's just by looking at it, it causes pain to the eye, which is a figurative expression of saying that the place rather resembles dirtiness or resembles ugliness, that which is a contrast of a beautiful town that is Kamdebu. And then the diction, we've got figurative language there. Please be mindful of critical language awareness. You should expect such questions pertaining to the use of figurative expressions when you are writing paper 2, My Children, My Africa. For the line on page 51, where they say that it's eyesore, it's a metaphor, suggests that breakwater is ugly, dirty, or horrific, exactly as I've already explained. And then we've got symbolism, where you have it can be in a form of I would say a pondox, which is a house. And then what does it symbolize? Why is it a pondox? These are houses that are built of wood and corrugated iron, which we normally call them shacks. Now, what do they symbolize? They symbolize poverty, because once you see somebody residing in a shack, that means that they do not have the necessary resources or means to build themselves better houses. So symbolism, it means that when you see a particular object, what does it symbolize, or what does it represent? It indeed represents poverty. These are shelters made of wood or corrugated iron. And then register the word bleak that was used by Isabel to describe the classroom on page 52 means desolate, depressing, or unwelcoming. And Isabel uses to describe the number 1 classroom at Zolile High School as in being grey and bleak, which is the tone and register. And further, it shows the attitude that which the initial attitude, let me put it that way, that Isabel had towards the number 1 classroom at Zolile High School. And the tone and mood, the tone in Isabel's monologue can be described as calm. There is also a sense of embarrassment because she now realizes that she had a superficial knowledge and understanding of the black people. The mood is subdued and desolate. So I can also add that it's a tone of criticism in the beginning of the monologue. She was somehow criticizing the lifestyle of people in Breakwater. Also shocked as to how they can survive, for example, in a 2-bedroom with 8 people having to survive in such a cramped space. But there's also a contrast, which means a change of tone towards the end, where she accepts and realizes that there is more to learn about the lives of black people beyond interacting with auntie at home and Samuel, who is the driver of her father's pharmacy. So that is what we can deduce from Isabel's monologue, which is also known as a soliloquy, to understand her reflection after the debate at Zolile High School.